Hi, my name's Christina. Welcome May. It's Memorial Day, and this is where we're going to honor the veterans that have served and those who have lost their lives serving. And for that, I'm going to do a tribute to the LGBT community, and I'm going to do one old and one new book that features LGBT characters that have either served or are serving in the military in the story currently. So without further ado, begin. The first one I'm going to bring to you is A Little Too Broken by Brad Vance. Anybody that knows me knows I have like a huge soft spot for Mr. Brad. How you doing? And I will read anything that he writes. So A Little Too Broken kind of stole my heart with Mr. Jamie. Jamie has high anxiety, and I can completely relate to that. His past relationship has left him very emotionally scarred, has left him kind of traumatized, and left him being HIV positive. And that's something I really admire about this whole story, is because even no matter what story you read, what genre you're in, you hardly see a character that faces like this thing in the real world. HIV positive, any kind of STD, that nature, and I commend Brad for bringing this to the forefront and making it a big part of A Little Too Broken. So we have Jamie with his high anxiety. He's going into the animal shelter. He has to get Jackson, who is his cat, a girlfriend. And he looks and he finds the perfect cat. But anxiety comes over and he just doesn't think it's going to work. Everything's going to boil down into tears. The world's going to explode. It's going to be all over. On his way out, he kind of runs into Tom. And Tom is a man's man. Very big, very burly, very muscular. And they have this eye connection. And it's kind of like the most adorable meet cutes that have been set up in literature, I think. Just the whole situation around it. Jamie and Tom are introduced, and it comes that Tom works for a charity that trains dogs for wounded veterans. And so they kind of talk, and Jamie's like, well, I can volunteer. You know, he's an office manager at the CARES clinic. Tom gives him a card. He's like, yeah, I'll see you next Saturday. And then, of course, Jamie's like, what have I done? What am I doing? He just kind of gets like overworked about this whole situation. Tom has not told his family that he is gay. Tom came back from war, a wounded veteran. He's an amputee, lost both of his legs right above the knee. And right now he is walking on prosthetics, and he has a dog, and that's where he got involved working with this charity. And so both characters have these two different things. Jamie on one side is HIV positive, very emotionally traumatized from his past, and you have Tom over here who is dealing with being an amputee and how the world is going to now look at him and how he can't have, a normal relationship. Moving forward is going to be an issue. His family has had to deal with so much already with him with everything. He can't add being gay to the table. And so Brad writes this story about these two men. And, they both have extra baggage. They both believe themselves just to be a little too broken to be a whole. Like, there's too much chipped away at Jamie and too much chipped away at Tom that when you put them together, they're just not gonna fit. It's very, like, a huge emotional roller coaster. You get both points of view. They both have best friends that just kind of come into the play and kind of, like, I wouldn't say smack him around, but do what best friends do, bring him back into reality. Like, let's get out of your head. Let's come on, let's see where we're going. And that's kind of what they need. That's kind of the push that they need to say, okay. So, they go from being strangers meeting at the animal shelter. Now they're kind of working together in the charity when Jamie's there. Then they've kind of become friends. And slowly they see that although they have these inconsistencies, they're really not a little too broken. Another bonus with A Little Too Broken is that it recently came out in an audiobook, and it is narrated by Brad Vance. So you get his deep, smooth, sexy voice telling the story. And I think that adds a level of intimacy to the story, because now you're getting the author's perspective through his voice, how he hears the characters, how he's developed the characters. And that, as a reader, as a listener, just like I said, it brings this whole new level, and I kind of have a deeper appreciation. Like, it just came out and I've listened to it twice. It's so good. Another great thing about A Little Too Broken is that 50% of the royalties for this go to two different charities. You have IAVA, which is Iraqi and Afghanistan Veterans of America, and then you have Puppies Behind Bars. And Puppies Behind Bars is where it takes prisoners and trains them how to raise service dogs for wounded veterans. So there's kind of a big bonus when you buy this. You're going to get a great piece of literature, a great piece of audio, and 50% of those proceeds are going to go help a wounded veteran. So pause and go buy and enjoy, because it's going to be fantastic. A Little Too Broken is 4.5 stars for me. It was so great. If you are a Brad fan and you want something a little bit more like rough and tough, Sam and Derek, both ex-military personnel, one kind of special forces on another side of the world, and one with art, is series of short stories. They're very erotic, very intense, very rough. Loved them. They are great. And now we're going to move on to a new book, Between Ghosts by Garrett Leigh. And I've never read anything by Garrett Leigh. I know, I'm really sorry. And I was really blown away by the writing and by the research and by how the story was put together. And it wasn't just like a fly off the seat. Yes, I read some New York Times articles. Now I'm going to write you a story about what I think about the war. No, this was a really well put together story. And for that, thank you. This is about Connor Regan, who is a journalist, and at the time he kind of does like fluff pieces for The Guardian, keeps you updated on, trends, entertainment, things of that nature. And then in 2003 he goes on a Million Man March in London, kind of protesting the war that his brother is currently serving in. 8 months after that, his brother dies at war, and that kind of changes Connor's perception considerably. Like, he kind of becomes this new person. Then he starts going through all this training and everything, and he becomes like a war journalist. And this is where he meets Nat Thompson. Nat Thompson is the SAS unit leader that Regan is going to be a part of while he's on this journey. And Nat is a bisexual character. It's not that he'll like do anything with legs, but he doesn't have a consideration either way. He has a fond love of kind of all human beings. And his best friend, Pogo, kind of used to pick fun at him and stuff. And so what we have Connor Regan, who's dealing with the ghosts of his brother's death, trying to come to terms with that. He's going to the war to discover like what was he doing, what was he involved in. And then you have Nat Thompson, who is dealing with the ghost of his best friend Pogo, and constantly has kind of him in his ear, constantly keeps him grounded, keeps things going on. And so they're both kind of between ghosts. Connor comes in. Connor's going to be part of this unit, and this unit is now going to be dedicated to doing some humanitarian issues. So while they're out and about delivering water, they deliver coloring books for children, they kind of get pieces and clues as to what's going on in this little town. Things don't seem particularly right. And while they're staying in Saddam Hussein's old palace, they kind of get bombarded by rockets, and everybody's just kind of like, no big deal. But it seems to increase, and as it increases, the whispers around town become kind of different. And it becomes kind of like this mystery as to what's going on, who's here, is it like a big cell of the enemy? And at the same time, you have the immediate connection of Connor and Nat that happened like pretty much as soon as Nat saw Connor and Connor turned around and saw Nat. And as Nat struggled because he wasn't going to get involved in another relationship after Pogo, who was just a best friend, like he just didn't have it in him to care and to love and develop feelings anymore for somebody that wasn't in his unit, somebody that he really didn't have to, somebody that was going to go away once the story was complete. And so he's fighting the demon of, no, I don't want you, yet at the same time he is physically just, I can't stay away from you and I have to protect you. And the protection goes beyond like, here's this journalist from The Guardian you need to protect. It's kind of like this is mine and I have to protect mentality. And Connor's kind of like swept off his feet. But he's still his own person, and he still has to prove to everybody that I am supposed to be here, I can be an asset, which he does. There really wasn't a side of the story that I didn't like. I enjoyed getting both characters' points of view. I enjoyed seeing how they kind of looked at and saw each other and the things that moved forward and how Connor took in the unit, how the unit took in Connor, and just kind of conversations back and forth. And the physical relationship between Connor and Nat was kind of a beautiful, just budding flower in the middle of crap. If you guys can make it through. And that is the issue. Can they make it through the war? Can they make it through the attacks? Can they make it through kidnappings and beatings and just horrible situations that nobody ever should have to find themselves in? Between Ghosts by Garrett Leigh, Riptide Publishing. I give it 4 stars. This is your double feature as my tribute towards Memorial Day. Bye.